Coming up in this episode, the Enchanted Princess arrives in Curacao. It's the 6th of 7 islands on this cruise, and I take a tour of the island. I have a relaxing beach break, I visit Curacao Distillery, and spend time exploring the capital, Williamstad. Good morning from Williamstad, Curacao. We were actually due to arrive this morning at 7, but due to a medical emergency last night, we actually arrived at midnight. The captain made an announcement at about 10:30 to say that somebody needed to be evacuated to the hospital. So we were getting up speed in order to arrive by midnight. So we pulled alongside the pier just shortly after midnight. We're currently docked, I think probably the furthest pier away from the main town centre. We're opposite the Curacao Hotel, which I believe is part of the Hilton group. So a nice view. I think it'll be a 15-minute walk to the town centre. But first there's a shore excursion to be done. Today's excursion was booked through the cruise line and it's called Curacao Highlights and Beach Break. I had booked this in advance of the trip and at that stage it cost me $75. Today's actually our longest day in port and we're here until 10 p.m. tonight, so there's plenty of time for a shore excursion, but also hoping to do some independent exploring afterwards. My shore excursion this morning didn't start until 10:15 a.m, so it was a nice leisurely start and just a really short walk from the ship to where the coaches were lined up for the excursion. Something to point out in terms of the coaches that are used for the shore excursions both here in Curacao and also yesterday on Bonaire, they're far superior in comparison to the vehicles that we've had on some of the other islands earlier in this trip. So the coach today was equipped to the standard that you would expect, safety standard wise. It had seat belts, it even had footrests and USB charging points. The initial part of the tour was through various areas in Willemstad. So while enjoying the scenery, here's a few quick facts about Curacao. Dutch and the local language of Papiamento are the two main languages, but English is also fairly widely spoken, so there won't be any difficulties. Now, at the time of my visit, and it's November 2024, the official currency is the Netherlands Antillean guilder, although I understand that that will be replaced in 2025 by the Caribbean guilder. US dollars are also fairly widely accepted, so again, no difficulties. And in practical terms, every place seems to have the facility to pay by card, so personally I didn't feel the need to have any cash today.
Curaçao's capital is Willemstad, not a Dutch name, but the capital is divided by a harbour entrance.
As we left the port area, the initial part of the trip was a good opportunity to see most of the route from the port to the central area of Willemstad, where I'll be exploring later on. The Otrabanda district is on the left and the Ponda district is on the right, looking out as the bus travels along. Ponda district is where all those brightly coloured houses are on the opposite side of the water, across the Queen Emma swinging bridge. And ahead of us there are views of the Queen Juliana bridge, which we will be crossing shortly en route to our first stop. Our first stop was the Curacao Liquer Distillery, which is part of the Chobolobo estate. Now, we had about 20 minutes there, and that was enough time for a very brief tour through the distillery, and that was actually guided by our own shore excursion guide. So we saw the stills and the bottling area, and then there was an opportunity to taste a sample of the Curacao liqueur. It came in various flavours, so you could choose one. After that, the exit was inevitably through a gift shop. For anyone new to cruising, it might be useful to be aware of the fact that if you purchase alcohol when on shore, you are actually required to hand it over once you get back on board the ship. You're not allowed to take it directly to your cabin. So that will be stored for you for the rest of the cruise, and will then be returned to you generally the night before the cruise finishes. In terms of how this actually played out in the port today in Curacao, although I think an enormous amount of people actually purchased liqueur at the distillery, it didn't seem to be picked up on the scanners going through the ship when people returned, and it was very much left to people to self-declare where there was a staff member actually waiting to take the alcohol and label it and so on as people got back on the ship and had come through security. Once back on the bus, it was a fairly short journey from there to Mambo Beach for our beach break. So we had about 2 hours at this beachfront location, and it's an extensively developed area. It's got a 2-story mall type facility where there are lots of shops and restaurants and bars, and then the beachfront area is lined with various concession areas which have the typical offering of sun loungers and umbrellas, each kind of associated with its own beach bar area. Now, the excursion price included sun loungers in one of those areas, so the shore excursion guide led us to those. Now, unfortunately, the shore excursion groups appeared to be allocated loungers which were at the back of the lines of loungers, the furthest distance from the water. So that wasn't great. But on the positive side, at least it meant that there were lots of shady spots available. Now, as I mentioned on my experience in Bonaire, if you've seen that video, inevitably being a solo traveller does present challenges when it comes to a beach day and leaving your possessions perhaps unattended while you want to go in the water. So I think there were probably lockers available someplace in the overall Mambo Beach complex, but it's a pretty large area and I honestly wasn't going to spend time trying to hunt around and locate those. So really, it was a case of just limiting the amount of things that I brought with me. Now, while the area is very well laid out, very well maintained, the loungers are comfortable and so on, I still find it disappointing that on this cruise, as of yet, I have not experienced a Caribbean beach with a sense of tranquility and that idyllic environment that I would imagine without commercialism. So I'm still holding out hope for that to happen tomorrow in Aruba. The drive from Mambo Beach back to the port only took about 20 minutes or so, and while we were lucky and had pleasant weather in the morning, we were back at the ship just in time to avoid a huge lunchtime downpour. This weather pattern is becoming pretty familiar. Mornings seem to start off cloudy, the sun then comes out, and in the afternoon there's usually a very heavy tropical downpour. Hopefully this is going to clear. Not much fun going to explore Willemstad in pouring rain. As I mentioned, this was an unusually long day in port until 10 p.m. So there was still plenty of opportunity to wait for the weather to improve a bit before heading back out for my solo exploration of the capital, Williamstad. So the walk from the cruise port took just about 15 minutes to the central area. Now, leaving the port area, there was an opportunity to wander through some of the stalls that had been set up, and there was an entertainer in that area as well. After leaving the port area, you're then immediately into the Renaissance Mall and Riff Fort complex. Over the centuries, the fort has had a wide range of uses, including at one point having been a prison and at a later stage being the police headquarters for the island. So it's now an interesting commercial tourism hub, and it's got a wide offering of restaurants and bars as well as some retail outlets. As I left that area, it brought me closer to the two main central areas in Willemstad. So on one side to my left was the Ultrabanda area, and to my right across the water was the Punda area. The bell's just rung, so hopefully the bridge is about to move. Yes, it's on the move. Now, the Ultrabanda area seemed to be less touristy than other parts of Williamstad. To me, it seemed to have more of a mix of commercial facilities that you would expect to serve everyday life. So I spent most of my time actually on the Punda side. So I crossed the Queen Emma Bridge to the Punda district. Now, the bridge and that row of wonderful coloured Dutch-style buildings along the waterfront is probably one of the most recognisable sights on the island. It was interesting to explore around this area. Now, as it was later in the afternoon, I missed seeing the floating market fully operational. The stalls were in the process of being packed up for the day by the time that I got there. Apparently it operates between 7 AM and 2 PM most days. So if it's something that you really want to see, maybe think about flipping your day around and actually doing the exploring of Williamstad first and a shore excursion in the afternoon if you've got a longer day in port. Now, the floating market doesn't actually float. The stalls are set up on the footpath, while the small boats that bring the fresh produce and fish from Venezuela every day are actually docked just immediately behind the stalls. While I felt generally comfortable exploring most of Williamstad by myself, honestly I wasn't particularly keen on the area where the floating market is. I think it was just the time of day where it was beginning to feel a little bit deserted, so I made my way back to a more central location in Punda and explored the sites from there. As I was heading back, I was in time to see the full mechanism of the Queen Emma Bridge in action. The bridge is on hinges and it opens several times during the day in order to allow vessels to travel out to sea. Now, as far as I know, smaller cruise ships actually navigate into this area and they dock right along the waterfront, whereas the larger ships are docked at the main terminal where the Enchanted Princess is actually docked today. Queen Emma Bridge is renovated roughly about every 30 years or so, and it's actually the world's only pontoon floating wooden bridge. Now, don't worry if you get caught on one side as it opens. It doesn't take very long to go back into its closed position, and worst case scenario, if you're really stuck for time, there's actually a little ferry that goes back and forth while the bridge is out of action. Approaching the ship as the sun went down offered great views of the Enchanted Princess. Now, because of the extended day in port, there was actually an extra special entertainment performance scheduled on board this evening, where entertainers from Curacao were due to come on board to give a folklore performance. Fortunately, I missed this because it was on a bit earlier than I was actually back at the ship. I think it's probably a pretty regular feature of a Princess Cruises longer day here in Curacao. So if it's something that you want to see, do keep an eye on the Princess app or on the Princess Patter to see if it's scheduled and plan your evening accordingly. Later on, the evening entertainment in the main theatre was a guest vocalist called Rochelle Sears. Now, her show tagline is "From Combats to Stilettos," and during her show she explained how this came about. Basically, she was in the US Army, she did well in an Army talent competition, and from there she joined the Army Entertainment Corps. So since returning to civilian life, she's forged a career for herself as a guest singer on board cruise ships. A lot of her routine is Tina Turner inspired, although she did also do other songs by performers such as Whitney Houston. So all in all, it was pretty enjoyable.
Upon the eye and the sun begins to fade. It's been enough time to figure out how to chase my blues away. When my heart's on fire, come to me, wild and
After that, the schedule was meant to be a Caribbean-themed deck party. That was due to happen on the pool deck, but unfortunately, due to deteriorating weather conditions, that was moved indoors to the piazza. Now, a deck party indoors didn't really appeal to me, so it was a chance for an early night in order to get refreshed, ready for our final island tomorrow, which is Aruba. That wraps things up from this episode in Curacao. I hope you'll join me in the next episode as the repositioning cruise heads to a close, and also to check out the previous videos in this vlog series to see all the islands that we've visited so far. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider hitting the like button, and if you'd like to stay up to date on the rest of the vlog series or more vlog series, please consider subscribing to the channel. That would be really appreciated. For now, thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.